many books. Yes, please. Okay. It is time for another massive Black author book haul. As you can see, there's a lot of books here, so let's get into it. Because we have so many books to go through, I have grouped them. We've got a journey, and we're gonna start off with some books that I ended up getting for a book club, special editions, books that I've read recently, classics, tough-hitting books, thriller, horror, mystery type books, fantasy, which will lead us to our final destination, romance. I will have a menu down below so you can jump around to whatever you're the most interested in, and we should probably jump into it because I imagine this is going to be a long one. All right, starting with the books I recently got for a book club that I am a part of. I actually don't want to know too much about these, so we're going to quickly go into this, which is great since some of these are going to take us a while. The first book, Brooklyn by Tracy Brown.
Brooklyn learned the art of hustling from her parents, who used the church to get money. She's burning bridges and breaking hearts. And what she doesn't realize is that someone is prepared to end her reign of terror as she faces her killer and her fate. Brooklyn's stunned that justice comes from the least likely place.
I also, in a similar vein, ended up getting The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride.
It is a novel about small town secrets and the people who keep them. In 1972, when workers in Pottstown, Pennsylvania were digging the foundations for a new housing development, the last thing they expected to uncover was a human skeleton. Who the skeleton was and how it got buried there was just two of the long-held secrets that had been kept for decades by the residents of Chicken Hill, the dilapidated neighborhood where immigrant Jews and African Americans live side by side, sharing ambitions and sorrow.
And lastly for this club, books that I don't already own would be Raybearer by Jordan Ifuko. And this, as far as I'm aware, is a fantasy based off of African mythology and folktales and things like that. And I've only heard good things, so I'm so excited to be reading this year with the book club.
What if you sworn to protect the ones you were born to destroy? Tara Sai has always longed for the warmth of a family. She was raised in isolation by a mysterious, often absent mother known only as the Lady. When Tara Sai comes of age, the Lady sends her to the capital of the global empire of Aristar to compete with other children to be chosen as one of the Crown Prince's Council of 11. If she's picked, she'll be joined with the other council members through the Ray, a bond deeper than blood. That closeness is irresistible to Tara Sai, but the Lady has other ideas, including a magical wish that Tara Sai is compelled to obey. Kill the Crown Prince once she gains his trust. Tara Sai won't stand by and become someone's pawn, but is she strong enough to choose a different path for herself?
Moving on to some of the special editions that I've gotten recently, I ended up getting Cinderella is Dead by Canon Bayron. I have read from this author before and really enjoyed them. This is a Cinderella retelling, obviously featuring a Black character. The special edition is pretty simple. We don't have any end papers or reverse dust jackets. This is what the naked hardback looks like. There are some pretty sprayed edges, and I do really like the illustration here. And of course, I love that it is signed by the author. I'm interested to check this one out and see if I enjoy it because I am a big fan of retellings in general.
Canon Bayron does more than rewrite a fairy tale. She breaks it apart and rebuilds it into a wholly original and captivating story where girls finally decide for themselves who lives happily ever after. Now that sounds fire. Like, so good.
Then recently I got the new edition of Children of Blood and Bone. This has been on my radar for a long time. I actually ended up getting the Kindle gifted to me for my family a really long time ago and never got around to actually reading it since I never got the physical version. So when I saw that they were releasing all of them in special paperbacks, I figured I would jump on it since they were pretty affordable. I'm super interested in fantasies that feature Black mythology and characters and just the vibes, right? Like, I'm totally here for it. I don't know much about this, but I have heard good things and I'm really interested to see if it lives up to the hype.
They killed my mother. They took our magic. They tried to bury us. Now we rise. So it says she remembers when the soil of her home hummed with magic. Burners ignited flames, tiders beckoned waves, and Zeelies, reaper mothers, summoned forth souls. But everything changed once magic disappeared.
Now, since I'm a big fan of special editions, I do subscribe to like Fairy Loot, Illumicrate, Owlcrate, and all of those things, but as you guys probably know, those mostly feature books by white authors, so I've been pretty disappointed in that, and I recently found Satis Fiction, which is a subscription box. I believe it comes out every other month, and it focuses on books by diverse authors. I think mostly Black authors, but I'm very new to it, so I'm not 100% sure. The first book that I ended up getting was the new release, The Balance of Fates by Raquel Raylan, and this edition is gorgeous. It does come with signed book plates. The naked hardcover is pretty as well, and it does have end pages, but it does not have a reverse dust jacket. I do know that the person who puts all of this on is an individual, and it's really impressive what she's done. So I'm excited to get more books from this. And this one, it says, I am Lucia Dole Eclair, a witch born to love a vampire. So, yes, please. In a similar vein as the new Satis Fiction box, I also wanted to find something that was more diverse in terms of queer books, and so I recently discovered and joined the Rainbow Crate subscription boxes, and so I ended up getting The Fall That Saved Us by Tamara Jari. And this is by a Black author. It is beautifully done. I've been really happy with the special editions that they have. And look at this little internal flap to give you an idea what the book is about. This is like one of my favorite features of the books that they do. We've got gorgeous end papers, a pretty simple naked hardback, and then another signed book plate, and then information about the author. So love that. This one says that it is Sapphic Black American with a plot focusing on angel demons, emotional healing, ex-demon hunters, and forbidden love. It is an adult book, and it is mostly first-person dual POV. Love that. Yeah, so we have a character who has given up the family tradition of demon hunting, leaving behind her sacred angelic duty and fated sword. What she can't leave behind are the scars. To cope, she spends her days immersed in work, pouring all her attention into New Haven Books, her small bookstore. Hey! Love that for me. All right. An anchor in the new world she's carved for herself, but the past hasn't let go of her. When a succubus named Avitu arrives to claim her angel-touched soul, Cassiel's old hunter instincts flare, forcing her to choose between old knowledge and her truth. What should be a fatal seduction becomes a bargain neither woman expects. Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. I'm excited. I love when random subscription boxes end up being chef's kiss, so here for it. Okay, and then for the last special edition, this is another Rainbow Crate, and it's technically just an alternate cover. There is no special edition. It has the regular book underneath, but it does come with the signed book plate, because I guess you get 2 books each month, and one of them is indie published, which I believe was this one, and then sometimes the mainstream ones, they have a hard time getting the permissions to actually make special editions of them, which is kind of a bummer, especially because I ended up reading this in January, loved it so much, and pre-ordered the regular edition, so now I technically have 2 of them. So I will probably put one of these up in my Pangos since I do like them so much, but I will be keeping the alternate cover, but since both of them have the regular cover, which I also really like, I don't need both of them. Since I ended up talking about this in my January wrap-up along with one of my vlogs, I am not going to say much about it other than I loved it. I highly recommend it. It is a good time. There is a love triangle situation with polyamory. There's gender fluid. There's a lot of character stuff. And then we have a world where there's alchemy that is banned unless you are the elite who has permissions to do alchemy. And so, I don't know, there's lots of stuff going on. It is the first in a series and I'm excited to continue it. Although I will say it did feel like a standalone, so I'm interested to see where it goes. Continuing with books that I've already read, I ended up reading The Fastest Way to Fall, and I believe it was in my TBR Jar Chooses My Next Read video, and I wasn't expecting this to be as enjoyable as it was, since I have read stuff from this author before, and it was a little bit more heavy-hitting than I had expected, but this one, although it still had some relatively tough topics around weight loss and weight and things like that, it was so fun. I really, really enjoyed the characters, the writing, the back and forth banter between our two characters. We have a journalist and the CEO of the app that she is investigating, but they don't know who each other are. So they build this friendship not realizing what is going on, and it kind of goes from there, and I loved it. Then for the video that I ended January with and began February with, I ended up reading While We Were Dating by Jasmine Guillory. The first book I ever read from her, I was kind of so-so about it. So ever since then, I've always been kind of hesitant, but I've been loving most of the books that I read. All of them that I've read so far have been romances, and they usually feature older characters, and they can have some pretty good banter back and forth and a nice level of believability, while still being cheesy romance, fun, good times. So this one focused on a plus size actor and the creative director of a campaign shoot thing that she's supposed to do. I don't know, it didn't really focus too much on their jobs. Basically, stuff happens and they end up interacting more than expected and kind of building friendship, relationships, so on and so forth. And it ended up being a fun time. In the same blog, I ended up reading The Checklist, and this one I was really excited about because I thought it was another romance, and although there are romance elements to it, it seems like it's way more general fiction, and I found myself feeling secondhand anxiety based off of this woman's job because she ends up getting transferred to a job that is kind of like a career suicide job. And so she's forced to try and bring this company back on its feet, and she's dealing with her crappy boyfriend, she's dealing with the crappy job experience, she's dealing with people not taking her seriously, she's dealing with her crazy family, and then on top of that, finds herself running into her hot neighbor, and then after hearing the work that he's doing, decides to try and help him out, but things just become pretty overwhelming. And it was good for what it was, but it was disappointing for a cheesy, lighthearted rom-com because it just was not that. Once I got past my disappointment in that, I did see that there was some nice merit to it if you're not going into it for the romance. Now, the last three books that I've already read kind of transitions us into classics that I have been acquiring. And the first one is Colorstruck, which is a 40-page play by Zora Neale Hurston, and it starts off with some information about Harlem Renaissance in the time that she was, you know, actively part of it. And it was interesting. It is about colorism. The story itself, I think, did a pretty good job, but I did want more out of it. But I really loved the information that it started off with because I feel like it gave me the starting point for research work that I hope to do, because I just found a lot of that fascinating and I want to look more into it. I don't know. Depends on what you're looking for. And then I ended up getting Neighbors and Other Stories from Book of the Month, which I also had gotten the audio from NetGalley. And so I was like, I must read this before I lose the audiobook. And this is from an author who passed away in the 1960s, and it's a bunch of short stories that she ended up doing. And some of them are about, you know, just general life as a Black person in the past, and then some of them focus on other things. Some of them, you know, get a little bit weird or a little bit different, and it wasn't quite what I was expecting. Like, some of them was like, oh yeah, this is what I expect from an author from the 1960s. Some of them kind of stepped out just a teeny bit, and I wasn't expecting that. That was kind of a pleasant surprise. So it was interesting. I liked the beginning ones a little bit more. The last couple of stories dragged a little bit, but overall, it was a good time. Like, we're already 17 minutes in and I have only scratched the surface. So many books. And then the last one that I've already read was James Baldwin, The Fire Next Time. And that I ended up posting in my TBR marathon video. So if you would like to see that along with a bunch of other books that I ended up reading, I highly recommend it. It was a wild ride. But this one is 2 essays by James Baldwin. The first one I absolutely loved, and the second one I really liked at the beginning. There are a lot of great quotes that I ended up finding in here. I did annotate the first half. I will say the second part of the longer essay, which was the second one, started to drag a little bit in the end, and I found myself kind of rushing through it. But I do believe sometime in the future I will probably reread this again and continue annotating the parts that I didn't finish annotating this time around. So I do recommend it, but it depends, again, it depends on what you're looking for. I did really like his writing, and I am excited to read more from him in the future to see if I also enjoy those. Which is why I ended up getting Go Tell It on the Mountain, also by James Baldwin. And this one is an actual story that chronicles a 14-year-old boy's discovery one Saturday on March 1935 of the terms of his identity as the stepson of the minister of a storefront Pentecostal church in Harlem. Yeah, and it's considered a American classic. I am interested in checking it out and seeing how I feel about it. And then the last 2 classics I ended up getting are both Penguin classics by Black authors. This one is Right by My Side by David Haynes, and it is a 1980s coming of age story about a Black teenager, family love and obligation, and the everyday struggle of growing up, which obviously very interested. I'm trying to read more classics, but admittedly, a lot of them have topics that I don't necessarily love, so I want to sprinkle in things that are a little bit more representative among to really round out the classics that I read. And then next up, we have Black Empire by George S. Schruler. I am butchering that. I am so sorry. That was not a name I thought I would struggle with. But this one says it's a pioneering work of Afrofuturism and anti-racist fiction. So this one, I believe, is more sci-fi fantasy, which I think is really, really exciting to read in a classic novel by a Black author. So I'm excited. Okay, moving on to our more tough topic sort of stories. We have The Angel of Greenwood by Rondi Pink, and this one is about the Tulsa Massacre. So I have been fascinated with this story ever since I heard about it and have really been interested in learning more and hearing more stories. So when I heard of this, I was all like, yes, please. I know it's going to be tough because we have the Black Wall Street in the town of Tulsa, which is a successful, thriving Black community in the time of segregation. And unfortunately, after an event happens where I believe a young Black boy ends up startling a woman and people think that she was attacked by him, they use it as an excuse to attack the entire Black community and burn down their community. So that's basically what happened. It turned out that I think he just like ran by her and she just got startled. Like, he didn't actually do anything, but because they were just looking for an excuse to bring down the Black people, since they were not happy with the success that was happening right next door to them, they didn't even question anything, and they just, the whole town, it was a mob, it was horrible, it was crazy, and this is supposed to be a fictionalized story that took place during the same time that focuses on 2 characters before and I believe also after the experience. We have a 16-year-old Angel Hill who's a loner and mostly disregarded by her peers as a goody-goody, and she is also a loyal follower of Booker T. Washington. She believes through education and tolerance that Black people should rise slowly and without forced conflicts. And then we also have 17-year-old Isaiah Wilson, who's the town troublemaker, but who's also secretly a reader and poet. He's a passionate follower of W.E. Du Bois, and he believes that Black people should rise up to claim their place as equals. He attended the same school for years and didn't notice each other, but when life changes on May 13, 1921, as a vicious white mob storms the community of Greenwood, leaving the town destroyed and thousands of residents displaced, only then did the two of them realize who their true enemies are and kind of, I guess, band together. So yeah, I know it's gonna be hard, and I don't know when I'm gonna have the mental capacity to read this, but I am really interested, and I do hope to tackle it in the near future. Wibbly wobbly over here. Okay. Next up, we have You Truly Assume by Layla Sarbreen. This is about 3 young girls and their experiences after a terrorist attack rocks the US and stirs anti-Islamic sentiment. One of the girls runs a private online journal called You Truly Assume, which she discovers isn't actually private, and she has a few other people who are actually following her and believes similar themes, and this journal brings them all together as they are experiencing the turmoil and the after effects of this attack. And so yeah, definitely interested in this. I do find it very just heartbreaking anytime a big event happens and people take that as a cue to act racist and bigoted towards other groups of people who have, you know, the same nationality of whoever targeted the original attack. And this sounds like one of those situations, which, yeah, it's stupid, but unfortunately it still happens to this day. Now we're gonna segue a little bit into a specific author. So in my last book haul, I ended up getting a fantasy by this author, and I need to give you guys a little bit of a disclaimer. You need a disclaimer before I say, because I really like his writing. I haven't completed any of his books, and the couple that I have started do touch on really tough, dark topics that not everybody's gonna get on board with and do require a lot of trigger warnings. So if you are interested in checking this author out, I'm not necessarily recommending because I haven't finished anything, and I also would suggest trigger warnings. Like, check the trigger warnings if that's something that you need to be careful with, because several of the books that I've started have them all. And that is Marlon James, starting with A Brief History of 7 Killings, which is based off of the attack of Bob Marley in Jamaica in the 70s. And so I was really excited to pick this up, especially after I watched One Love, the Bob Marley movie. But I will say this is a fictionalized version of the experiences that actually focus on other characters outside of Bob Marley. So it doesn't have the same vibe as the movie. Also, if you're listening to the audiobook, some of the characters, because we have different POVs, some of them have very thick Jamaican accents, which I adore personally as a Jamaican mixed woman. It brings lots of warms and fuzzies. So I've personally been enjoying the books because I like that element, and then I also just generally like his poetic, dark and gritty writing. There are things that people aren't going to enjoy. This one does start off really early on with one of the characters who I think might be one of the shooters later on, but when he's a kid, he is forced to watch his father be assaulted and then murdered in front of him. And so, yeah, it gets dark and twisted pretty early on, and I'm only like 150 pages into it, and there's like 600 something pages. So gosh knows where it's going to go from there. So beware. But so far, I'm excited, and once I finish, I will let you know if I do actually love his work, because right now I'm loving the writing and all of the like hidden messages that tends to be featured, but it requires deep reading if you're going to enjoy it, is what I'm noticing so far. Then I ended up getting his book, The Book of Night Women, which again is also supposed to have some tough topics. I don't know much about this one and don't plan on learning until I get around to it. And then lastly, John Crow's Devil. This is his debut and the shortest. It does still have some of that poetic writing that he has, but it's not nearly as strong as I saw in the first book that I started with him, Black Leopard, Red Wolf, or even in A Brief History of 7 Killings. I haven't picked this one up at all, so I have no clue what the writing is like in there. But this one is a I don't even know what. I'm a little bit confused so far. We have a small black town that is kind of left to its own devices in Jamaica, and it originally has a drunk pastor, and then randomly this like badass apostle comes in, and there's like a fight between these two religious men and a back and forth and the questioning of, I don't know. I do not know, but it is very interesting. There are some cool stuff. There is the Jamaican vernacular included in some parts, even though most of it is not like that. But you do have like little escarps. But you do have the people, you do have, why am I struggling to words right now? You do have the conversations back and forth that has the vernacular, and then I believe every so often there's like a, like a page or a paragraph of like a conversation between two characters that kind of sums up where you're at in the story. And it seems fascinating so far, but I'm not that far into it. So I will let you know whenever I get around to finishing it. And that brings us into thriller mysteries, I think. Because I do have Did You Hear About Kitty Carr by Crystal Smith Paul. And this one is a multi-generational saga that traverses the glamour of the Hollywood and the seductive draw of modern day showbiz. When Kitty Carr Tate, a white icon of the silver screen, dies and bequeaths her multi-million-dollar estate to the St. John sisters, 3 young, wealthy black women, it prompts questions, lots of questions. So I believe she is actually a white passing black woman. And in this, we end up hearing from those women that she ends up giving it to, while we're also uncovering the history of her herself. And it does say that the truth behind her ascent to stardom from her beginnings in the segregated South threatens to expose a web of unexpected family ties, debts owed, and debatable crimes that could, with one pull, unravel the all-American fabric of the St. John sisters and those closest to them. So doing this, I guess, puts them in danger, and we'll see where it goes from there. Then I'm not actually sure too much about this one, so I have The Mayor of Maxwell Street. The year is 1921 and America is burning. A fire of vice and virtue rages on every shore, and Chicago is its beating heart. So we have our main character, who's the daughter of the wealthiest Negro in America, whose affluence catapulted his family to the heights of Black society. I am very interested in reading books about high Black society in the past, because I feel like we just don't get a lot of it, even though there was a whole culture of Black elites. I'm excited about this, but I don't know what the tone or the focus is actually going to be. So it sounds like her only brother dies unexpectedly, and she becomes the premier debutante overnight. Everybody wants to be with her because there's no longer a male heir, so whoever she marries will get her fortune. And it sounds like she has other things that she wants to do beyond society influence in marriage. Oh, she wants to be an investigative journalist, sharing the achievements and tribulations of everyday Black people living in the shadow of Jim Crow. Her latest assignment thrusts her into the den of a dangerous vice lord, the so-called mayor of Maxwell Street. Okay, yeah, so it seems like this is going to be more thrilling than anything else, and it features several topics that I'm pretty interested in, so I just got really excited. Yeah, this was a blind pick. It was just one of the options, and I was all like, oh, that looks kind of interesting. I don't remember what the little blurb was, but it definitely didn't give all that away. But I will be honest, 1920s, right? Yeah, 1920s Black characters. You don't really have to tell me much more to get me on board. A little bit more obviously thrilling would be Mirror Girls by Kelly McWilliams. In this one, it says, as infants, twin sisters Charlie Yates and Magnolia Heathwood were secretly separated after the brutal lynching of their parents. Now, at the dawn of the civil rights movement, Charlie is a young Black organizer in Harlem, while white passing Magnolia is the heiress to a cotton plantation in rural Georgia. Why is that word so hard to say? Rural. It says they get reunited as teenagers in this deeply haunted town of Eureka, Georgia, where ghosts linger centuries after their time and dangers lurk behind every mirror. They couldn't be more different, but they will need each other to put the hauntings of the past to rest, to break the mirror's deadly curse, and to discover the meaning of sisterhood in a racially divided land. So, Yes, a spooky story with racial undertones, totally up my alley. Okay, and then Monstrous. So for here, this is by Jessica Lewis, and it says, don't go outside past dark, come straight home after church, and above all, never ever go into the redwood. The residents are suspicious of her and at times outright hostile, and it's clear that they see her as some kind of outsider, which is proven when Lativia is dragged out of her house in the dead of night into the forbidden redwood and presented as a human sacrifice to an ancient monster. Sanctum doesn't know Lativia though. She won't be eaten without a fight. She'll do whatever she has to survive, even if that includes turning into a monster. Yes! I don't know. I do not know, but it sounds great. Like, it sounds so good. So good, right? Like, tell me that doesn't sound great. I'm here for it. I am here for it. Next up, switching into our fantasy sci-fi thriller. This one's more sci-fi than anything else. I think the rest are more fantasy, but we'll see. And this one is The Old Drift by Namwali Serpell. And it is 1904 on the banks of the Zambezi River, a few miles from the majestic Victoria Falls. There's a colonial settlement called the Old Drift. Yeah, so on, so forth. Things are happening, but it does say that from a woman covered with hair and another plagued with endless tears, to forbidden love affairs and fiery political ones, to homegrown technological marvels like astronauts, micro drones, and viral vaccines, this gripping, unforgettable novel is a testament to our yearning to create and cross borders and a meditation to the slow, grand passing of time. So I believe it's got a mix of kind of like old normal things along with futurism and, you know, crazy fantasy elements. And that sounds fascinating to me. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it, but I'm really interested to see how those elements are tied into the story and where it goes from there. So yeah, pretty excited about this. Then we have Dorothy Must Die by Danielle Page, and this one is a Wizard of Oz retelling, and it says, sure, I've read the books, I've seen the movies, but I never expected Oz to look like this. A place where good witches can't be trusted and wicked witches just might be the good guys. A place where even the yellow brick road is crumbling. What happened, Dorothy? My name is Amy Gum, and I'm the other girl from Kansas. I've been recruited by the Revolutionary Order of the Wicked, and I've been given a mission. Remove the Tin Woodman's heart, steal the Scarecrow's brain, take the lion's courage, and then Dorothy must die. What? Yes, please. Just yes, please. Again, I'm so here for retellings of things. And yes, that sounds like a wild ride. Okay? And I'm here for it. Okay? Okay, then for a new release that I'm really excited about, we have Lore of the Wild by Annalay Sabrana. And this one has just a little quote here. An abandoned library. An abandoned library with a deadly enchantment. A fey lord who will do anything to get in. A brave human woman, a collector of stories, willing to risk it all for a taste of knowledge and power. Sounds good to me. Also, look at this art. Look at this cover. This is gorgeous. I want those men. I want them good. Okay, so this one, I don't know, maybe could have gone in the classics section, but I don't know. It is Octavia Butler's Kindred, and this one is another science fiction. Oh, I forgot, I have more than one of these. And we have our main character who is in modern day world and randomly gets time traveled, sucked back into the past, where she is supposed to figure out how to help someone from the past in this like plantation slave owning situation. And I think every time this person or somebody dies or something, it starts over again somehow, but she never knows when she's gonna go here or there. Is that right? Am I making that up? Do people die? Is this like a Groundhog's Day situation, or is it something else entirely? I don't know, but I've heard great things about Kindred and Octavia E. Butler's writing in general, and I figured this would be a great place for me to start so that I can, you know, get caught up, get with the times, try things out, and I'm excited. I'm super excited. A little bit nervous, but super excited. Then we have Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. I am really excited to jump in because I have heard good things about it. This one was like the talk of the town when it first came out a couple of years ago. I remember hearing it all over the place. This is a fantasy inspired by pre-Columbian Americas. In the holy city of Tova, 3 lives are converging during a solar eclipse prescribed by the sun priest as an unbalancing of the world. Meanwhile, a ship launches from a distant city bound for Tova and set to arrive on the solstice. The captain of the ship, Zalia, is a disgraced teak whose songs can calm the waters around her as easily as it can warp a man's mind. Nice, cool, cool, cool. Her ship carries 1 passenger, described as harmless. The passenger, Serapio, is a young man, blind, scarred, and cloaked in destiny. As Zalia well knows, when a man is described as harmless, he usually ends up being a villain. Hey! I love the idea. That sounds super exciting. It is a chunky one, and I don't know if there's like how many books are in the series. Hopefully it's not too many, because I want to just binge read the whole series, honestly. Like, that's one of the reasons why I tend to put off series, is because I just love binge reading them when everything is out. I know there's another book. Are there 2 books out right now? 3 books? Is this a duology, a trilogy? Is this like a full-on series? I need to know, because I want to start reading it now. I don't want to have to stop. That's the only thing holding me back. And also because I'm just like really interested in reading like typical fantasy feeling stories, but with, you know, like African and or Black influence sprinkled in. I decided to pick up Imaro by Charles Sanders. It says, Imaro is a rousing adventure, a tale of a young man's continuing struggle to gain acceptance among his people and to break the cycle of alienation and violence that plagues his life. Imaro is a heroic fantasy like it's never been done before. Based on Africa and African traditions and legends, Charles Sanders has created Numbandi, which means home in Swahili. Ooh, I apologize, I probably said that incorrectly. So it's an amalgam of the real, the semi-real, and the unreal. And Imaro is the name of a larger-than-life warrior, an outcast who travels across Numbandi searching for a home. I'm interested to see where this goes. And now, we lead fantasy into romance with the romantasy, which is That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon. I think this is supposed to be relatively steamy, but it actually has a full-on like plot and storyline that people really enjoy. This was a indie published series, which I believe there are 3 books currently, that was recently bought on, and they got new covers, which tell me this isn't just beautiful, because you'd be lying if you said that. Because I love it. I love the art. This one's by Kimberly Lemming, and this one says, Spicy Trader, Cinnamon's quiet life is turned upside down when she ends up on a quest with a fiery demon. In this irreverently quirky rom-com fantasy that is sweet, steamy, and funny as hell. All she wanted to do was live her life in peace, maybe get a cat, expand the family spice farm. Really, anything that didn't involve going on an adventure where an orc might rip her face off. But they say the goddess has favorites, and if so, Sin is certainly not one of them. I'm here for it. Unfortunately, that's the only romantasy that I have. Next up, we have A Duke the Spy, An Artist and a Lie by Vanessa Riley. And this is another one in her series that features Black women in historical romances, and I have really enjoyed them so far. This one, we have our main character who is an heiress, and she decided to marry the charming military lieutenant so that she could save him from danger and also save herself from marrying other like mercenary suitors. But now she feels like this was a mistake. Instead of the passionate life together that she was expecting, she's stranded at his chilly mansion with his unaccepting family. Worse, she finds he is actually a spy dedicated to duty over wedlock and secrets over trust. So when she hears her sister has been driven to her death, she's determined to expose the powerful man responsible. Assisted by the widow's grace, which is like a community in all of these books, she flees to a Covenant garden with a new identity. But can she elude her formidable husband, even as the desires between them continues to flare even hotter? So I guess whatever is going on will bring them apart and then bring them together. So yeah. I've really enjoyed the other books in this series so far, so I'm excited to continue and see where it goes, and that's that. Then we have a sapphic romance called Outdrawn by Deanna Gray, and this is featuring two characters who are, I believe they're supposed to be sort of rivals. Sage and Noah have to work as a team, or at least appear to work as a team. They thought the hardest part of the relaunch would be drawing together. But that's easy in comparison to resisting their feelings for each other. So, yes, I'm here for it. I love when characters think that they shouldn't be interested in each other, but are, and are basically just fighting their feelings the whole time. Like, I know, it's stupid, but it's totally my jams. More gorgeous cover art. So many beautiful covers. Then we have The Moment We Met. This was on sale. I don't know too much about it. It says, Tawanda Harrison's 30th birthday is a turning point. Gifted her late mother's journal, Tawanda is finally getting a glimpse of who her mother was as an adult. Shortly after, the budding entrepreneur receives a grant to jumpstart a delicious business opportunity, and her sweet dreams don't end there. Tawanda has been sent a dating app called Met that promises 4 matches, and among them, her soulmate. All Tawanda has to do is tap yes. Though she's doubtful about fitting romance into her life, the choices are hers. As the matches begin to surface, Tawanda is surprised to find that maybe there is some future potential after all. But which one could lead to real love? Only time will tell. That is, if she can find the time. So yeah, I'm very interested in checking this out. I get it. We are almost done here. The Secret to a Southern Wedding by Cynthia Williams. This one apparently isn't all that well known. I've seen some people talk about it recently, but like it doesn't have a lot of reviews. And I'm surprised because, I don't know, it seemed interesting to me. This one says it's an emotional and witty story of love, forgiveness, and second chances as the race to the wedding day begins. It's been years since Dr. Imani Kemp has returned home to Peachtree Cove, Georgia. As Tallahassee's most sought after OBGYN, she doesn't have much time for anything else. But when her mom announces she's marrying a man she just met on a dating app, Imani knows she has to put a stop to it immediately. Let her mom be hurt again after the disastrous way her last marriage ended? Absolutely not. Always her protector, Imani won't rest until her mom sees reason. She just never expected sparks to fly with the groom's son. I will say, that does sound a little weird. Definitely a messy family scenario. Falling for your mother's fiance's son is definitely awkward, but I don't know. We'll see where it goes. Hopefully the romance is interesting. I'm a little bit more nervous about it now after I've heard some recent reviews saying that like the romance wasn't there, but we'll see. Maybe I'll still enjoy it. And then the last and final book, I believe, is more general fiction than anything else, but it's about books, so I'm still here for it. And that is The Banned Bookshop of Maggie Banks by Shauna Robinson. And this one says, when Maggie Banks arrives in Belle River to run her best friend's struggling bookstore, she expects to sell bestsellers to her small town clientele. But running a bookstore in a town with a famously bookish history isn't easy. Belle River's Literary Society insists on keeping the bookstore stuck in the past, and Maggie is banned from selling anything written this century. So when a series of mishaps suddenly tip the bookstores towards ruin, Maggie will have to get creative to keep the shop afloat. And in Maggie's world, book rules are made to be broken. To help save the store, Maggie starts an underground book club, running a series of events celebrating the books readers actually love, but keeping the club quiet, selling forbidden books, and dodging the literary society is nearly impossible, especially when Maggie unearths a town secret that could upend everything. Maggie will have to decide what's more important, the books that formed a small town's history or the stories poised to change it all. Yes. All right. So these are all of the books by Black authors that I have gotten recently. It is a lot of books. You guys may have seen in my latest like wrap-ups and TBR game videos that I am now trying to limit how many books that I bring in. This is why. I did this and was all like, holy crap, this is an insane amount of books to be getting. And so yeah, now we're trying to dial that back. So basically the last couple of months don't count. We're just gonna wipe this off the slate for the year, and we're gonna count from March onward, because there is no way. There's no way. It's not happening, okay? So thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you've read any of these, let me know what your thoughts are, or if you're just excited to read them. Like, I want to know. Let's gush over books in the comment section below. If you've made it this far, leave the paint palette emoji in the comment section down below, or anything that represents art. So like a brush or a painting or something like that. Thank you for watching. Happy reading, and I will catch you in the next one. Until then, bye!